All right, you guys, I see streaming. Let me double check just to make sure because I'm not getting a Periscope notification and that always freaks me out when I don't get my notification. So let's see if we're actually live. Oh, I see Facebook, PackersNews is live. Are you live?
I'm live.
Ooh, okay. Let's see get some people trickling into the Facebook chat. If you're in the Facebook chat right now, say hello. But it looks like I see one viewer. All right. Okay. All right. We're good. Okay. Very unawkward. But hello, everyone. We are here at US Bank Stadium to tell you, if you were not aware yet, that the Packers are kings of the NFC North. They defeated the Minnesota Vikings here tonight. It was certainly a very interesting performance, I would say. Coming into this game, I thought that this was going to be a little bit more competitive. I thought the Vikings had an offense despite not having Dalvin Cook with them tonight. However, gosh, a Dalvin Cookless Minnesota Vikings defense was practically non-existent. I mean, the Packers essentially gave them 9 points tonight, and without the 3 turnovers that the Packers had in the first half, I don't think the Vikings would have gotten on the board.
There's a lot to unpack tonight. I think the best place to start, though, I haven't seen this team this happy in a long time. I mean, this was the biggest game that the Packers have played since the 2016 NFC Championship game. They hadn't been back on a stage like this, a championship stage. They clinched a division title tonight. That's the first of the gauntlet of championships that every team tries to go for. Even back then, when they got that far, when they won the NFC North in 16, it wasn't quite like this because they were used to it at that point. It's been a while since this franchise has had this sort of success to relish in and to feel good about. And like Tramon Williams said in the locker room, a lot of young guys, a lot of guys that have never really been here. And you can tell. And it's not just the young guys. David Bakhtiari I spoke with in the locker room, and there was a real pleasantness. I mean, he was kind of just soaking it in as a veteran because it had been a while. I mean, this team appreciates where it's at, and the joy is what stood out to me.
Absolutely. Tramon Williams packed his NFC North Champion t-shirt right in his suitcase, put it away, didn't put it on, unlike some of his other teammates. It's another shirt for him. This team has a lot ahead of them. They've accomplished quite a bit. There's no denying that this record is not something that I did not anticipate heading into this season whatsoever with all the changes that happened this offseason. But hey, listen, they are where they are, but they've got expectations ahead of them now, and they have to fulfill them if they want to make a push for the Super Bowl.
You know, the honest truth, I said going into the season, I thought there was a wide variance of what this team could do, and I thought that the ceiling was 12-4. I said that was the best that they could do, and I was wrong, by the way. And I got crazy looks when I said 12-4. People thought I was nuts. I was wrong. This team's going to go 13-3. And they very well might be the top seed in the NFC. If Seattle wins at Seattle next week, they've already beaten the San Francisco 49ers on the road. If they beat the San Francisco 49ers inside their home CenturyLink Field, and the Packers win in Detroit, which, I mean, it's probably going to happen, this team will be home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. It's at least going to be, if they win next week, the number 2 seed with the first round bye. 13-3, first year of Matt LaFleur. It's incredible. I mean, it really is.
It really is. And today, this game was the first time in a long time that I think we've been really able to say, yes, this Packers team does have a defense. This defense played all 4 quarters tonight. We haven't really seen a consistent game from this defense. We haven't seen complimentary football a lot this season just in general, but if you look at the defense and how they performed, they were consistent all night.
Well, complimentary football is key. The Packers crushed time of possession tonight. I don't know where it ended up, but at some point it was like 31-19 in the second half. They crushed time of possession, which means for the first time in a long time, their offense stayed on the field and it didn't wear out the defense. And you saw what happens when this defense doesn't get worn out by an offense that can't convert third downs. It's really good. Obviously, Dalvin Cook's absence and Alexander Madison's absence too was a huge, huge cloud over this game, but the Vikings paid Kirk Cousins a lot of money for moments like this, and he did nothing tonight. They've got really talented receiving core. They did next to nothing tonight. Stephon Diggs had the 1 touchdown, and that was it. This Packers defense did what they did week 2. They shut down this Vikings passing game, and they're going to be seeing a lot of good quarterbacks in January. If they can do this, that bodes well.
The question remains, though, and I've seen this question from some others. Cruz says the offense was horrible in the first half. The turnovers certainly contributed to that perception of the offense being horrible. But is this offense able to go into the playoffs and find success based off of what we've seen in the regular season? And doesn't matter what we've seen in the regular season. Can this offense kick it up a notch in the postseason?
The Packers offense that showed up in that second half can beat anybody with this defense. Complementary football is key, but what the Packers offense did do tonight, even despite the turnovers, in that second half, they completely wore down the Vikings defense. And that's a really good Vikings defense. I get that they lost Eric Kendricks in the game. Even still, that's a really talented Vikings defensive front. And they gashed him on the ground in the second half. Those rushing lanes were wide open. And more than they ever had this season, the Packers completely committed all 4 quarters to the run game. And it paid dividends with that 56-yard touchdown where Aaron Jones just had more juice in his legs to get to the left corner of the field than the Vikings defense. And, you know, that commitment to the run game and wearing down a good defense, that bodes well going forward. And
they didn't have a choice but to ride Aaron Jones toward the end of the game because of the exit of Jamal Williams. He left the game early with a shoulder injury, did not return. So they had no choice but to get Aaron Jones the ball, and they certainly did that. You might be able to tell me, but I know at one point he tied 23 carries, which was what his high was the last time the Packers played Minnesota. I don't know if he surpassed that, but still, to be putting up those numbers, plus whatever touches he had in the passing game as well, that's a lot.
I don't think the Jamal Williams injury, and we'll see how severe that is going forward, can be glossed over, because I thought that Jamal Williams provided a really nice change of pace tonight. His direct downhill power run style was a good match with what Aaron Jones was doing as a slasher. And something that Matt LaFleur did tonight, he broke trend, which is he'd been primarily doing what Mike McCarthy had done, where he gives the keys to the offense for a drive here to one running back, then the next drive to another. He was intermatching and intermixing those running backs during the course of the same drive a lot tonight. And you saw that really maximize the change of pace that those guys can provide. Even Tyler Ervin got into it with a 6-yard kind of reception on the jet sweep.
A little fun thing going on there.
Yeah, you know, when I think going forward, breaking that trend and having that be their identity where all hands are on deck and it's not just a drive here, but within the framework of a singular drive, that really maximizes the strength in their backfield.
Speaking of all hands on deck, the receiving game, again, it's been variable throughout the season, but I felt like tonight we really saw Allen Lazard emerge as that number 2 receiver. He got several looks on third down, which I think says a lot about the relationship that he and Aaron Rodgers now have on the field and how much it's evolved this season.
Yeah, he kept getting the Vikings on the same outside in move to the underneath slant. I think he had 3 receptions on third down to move the chains, which, let's face it, the bugaboo for this offense has been third down. So if they can find another consistent playmaker on third down, they can use all they can get, and he was that tonight. You know, that touchdown drive in the third quarter that really kind of gave them a little bit of breathing room with that 17-10 lead. 6 players touched the ball that drive. It started with Jamal Williams. It ended with Aaron Jones. In between, Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard had catches. MVS showed up, had his first catch in almost exactly a month since November 24th in San Francisco. And then the drive ends with the 2-point conversion with Geronimo Allison in the middle of the end zone. 6 players, 1 drive. I mean, that's for a team that kind of lacks that identity offensively and doesn't have a lot of depth. Maybe that's the anecdote is you throw mix and match and throw everyone out there at the same over the course of one drive and just see what you can do and kind of have that all hands on deck mentality.
You talk about guys getting their hands on the ball, different guys. What about different guys paving a path for the ball? You looked at Allen Lazard, Jake Coomer, all making really big blocks to get their run game going as well. I, for a very brief second, was like, you know what, hey, I could see Jake Coomer becoming an offensive lineman.
Jake Coomer just smashed Trey Waynes on one of those carries. I mean, he moved him like 3 yards. It was incredible on a crackdown. So, yeah, the receivers blocking, as they've done for most of the year. I mean, these guys haven't put up big numbers, but they blocked well in the run game, and that's important with what the identity of this team is, which is run the ball and control the ground game. So that certainly contributed.
Yeah, let's see. We've got Cody saying Rashawn Gary had some good flashes tonight. Fackrell had a nice game too. It was a big night for the outside linebackers group, namely Darius Smith, 3.5 sacks. Do you think that guy knew that some people out there didn't vote for him for the Pro Bowl? You think he had a little vendetta, a little bone to pick with some people out there? He certainly proved it tonight on the field.
Well, he's 6th in the league now with 13.5 sacks, and he's got 1 full sack more than a guy named Aaron Donald. So he's pretty good.
Who dat?
Yeah, he owned this game, and if he can do that, you know who else? Kenny Clark.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Kenny Clark's red hot. He's got 4.5 sacks in the last 3 games. You know Preston Smith, what he can do. This pass rush, it's getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, Kyle says Packers have to pay Kenny Clark. He's worth every penny. He's really stepping up in December, and I'm sure his agents are going to be showing Brian Gutekunst the film of this past month, being like, hey, I think I deserve some money.
It's pretty aptly timed, isn't it? You know, he limps off the field, and you're wondering, when's he going to be back? He comes back the next series and has a sack. I mean, that's what you want in a defensive lineman right there.
Mm-hmm. Kyle asking if there's any chance that Tony Brown gets back on the field. He played well. He's been inactive for the last several games. He was sidelined with an injury against Washington. I believe he was somewhat limited in practice during the week of Chicago, and then this week he was practicing once again. I don't know if it was just, hey, a matchup thing, someone's got to be inactive for this game. I don't know if it was maybe his injury, he's still hurting, but regardless, he was inactive. We'll see where he ends up.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
All right, there's your word from Ryan Wood. Bill points out there was a great block by Valdez-Scantling on the second Aaron Jones touchdown. I was in the elevator for that, so I didn't get to see very much of that.
I was writing feverishly on deadline, so I did not get a good look at the play. I looked up, and there's Aaron Jones breaking the game open.
Eric Kirby asks, is the red zone efficiency this team's identity? I would say that leading up to this game, perhaps. I think that's the one thing the Packers offense does really well is scoring in the red zone. However, tonight, I think after the first half, they were 0 for 2 in the red zone, which not super great for them, but obviously were able to kick it back up into gear later on.
Situational football has been this team's identity, and what's amazing about tonight is that they, in a lot of ways, lost situational football. I mean, especially turnovers. I mean, that's huge in situational football. Mostly they've been really good in that. I talked with Dave Bakhtiari about this after the game, the identity, and he said that he feels it's been the same the entire way, which is win ugly and just be balanced. And complementary football, we should talk about. I mean, it's such a big part of this team and the success at 12-3, but be balanced. And this isn't 2011, it's not 2014, it's not late 2016 where they're going to be putting up huge numbers on the scoreboard. They're just going to win instead.
Mm-hmm. We have Ed asking, he says he saw Rodgers shaking his hand a few times. Is his hand okay? He's been kind of inaccurate. It was kind of an interesting game. Really tough first half for Aaron Rodgers. It seemed like he was missing guys. He was making some odd decisions. He got sacked on the sideline right over there before he could run it out of bounds. He probably could have just threw it out of bounds, but it was some interesting, questionable decision-making tonight from the quarterback.
Tough first half, but he came on in the second half, and game manager is not the term that you usually associate with Aaron Rodgers, but in a lot of ways it's what he was tonight, and that's good enough with this team. He doesn't have to be 2011, 2014 Aaron Rodgers. He can manage the game, not make decisions like the interception. I mean, that was the worst pick he's thrown all year. I don't know what he was seeing on that play. But other than that, the quick passing game was a good complement, and not leading the way, but a good complement to the run game, and that's kind of the balance in the script for this team going forward.
So let's remind you guys of what the playoff seeding is at the moment, what it could be. So the Packers win out. They beat the Detroit Lions on the road in their last game of the regular season. That's a guaranteed second seed. So that's a bye first week. Feeling pretty good
in the divisional round, which
right.
is big.
That's
huge.
I mean that is a huge deal. Who wants to come into Lambeau in January and play at that field?
Certainly not the New Orleans Saints, who it would probably be. And just imagine here the difference between this Packers team going down to the Superdome against that Saints offense and having them on a bad field, Lambeau Field in January. Completely different game.
Nope, not into it. I would like to be warm and sitting in the press box, which I will be. So,
yeah, I wouldn't mind a little Mardi Gras, but
that's what the team would want. I understand that, but hey, some stars have aligned in a weird way for the Packers, and next weekend, if the 49ers beat the Seahawks. Or, sorry, the Seahawks beat the 49ers, correct?
If the Seahawks beat the 49ers, yes.
Then...
Which they already did in San Francisco. Now they got to do it at CenturyLink Field.
Then that could be a path for the Packers to that first seed.
This was the first night with how they played, and I think this is important. With how they played tonight, what I saw was a team that could beat anyone anywhere because of the balance, because of the complementary football, because of controlling the trenches on both sides of the ball, because they finally just stuck with Aaron Jones and let him do what he does. And you saw what that meant late in the game. But with where they're positioned, I mean, it's already got this feel of a special season. I mean, they dodged Patrick Mahomes. Tonight they dodged Dalvin Cook. The Cardinals beat the Seahawks in CenturyLink Field to give them an improbable path to a number 1 seed. They win this game tonight. It just keeps coming up. And, you know, you've been around this team a while. I've been around this team since 2014. I have seen this team get a lot of breaks go against them. A lot of stuff outside their control, a lot of funny bounces, some onside kicks, some of those things go against them. And that stuff evens out over the long haul, and it's hard not to shake that feeling that it's kind of evening out now. I mean, so many things are going their way. You get a certain sense of team of destiny, and they win ugly a lot, but they win. That's the point, and they get a lot of help along the way. And it's amazing to think about how close they actually are to home field advantage, the path to the Super Bowl in the NFC, going through Green Bay and Lambeau Field. It's what this team has wanted for a long time.
Yeah, it's, listen, this wasn't a pretty win. 3 turnovers is not pretty. However, I didn't think it was totally ugly. I didn't think this offense played totally ugly, except for those turnovers. Don't clip that. Don't stop there. But, like, I still think that the offense was able to move the ball really nicely, especially in comparison with the Vikings. I mean, we're sitting there watching the Vikings offense too, and gosh, they look like just 2 different offenses. And well, they are 2 different offenses.
They played methodical. They played physical. They owned the ground. All of those things, by the way, are very helpful. They come in handy when you're playing outdoors in January in Green Bay, and that's what they might be doing. So this is a team that the way they play is really well suited for that home field advantage. It's not just having home field advantage. I mean, it's kind of like saying that the way the New Orleans Saints play is really well suited for their home field, being on the fast track in a dome. You know, the way this Packers team plays, it's suited for that cold December, January football outdoors. It's a nice fit for them.
Well, Ryan, those NFC North Champion t-shirts say the North is not enough. It's a big accomplishment. The Packers should pat themselves on the back tonight. They
will
have a very fun plane ride home. I'm sure they will. I'm sure if you're not following them all on Instagram, they're probably going live right now on the bus to the airport. It's a good time, fun time to be in the world of social media. But that being said, the shirt's right. The North is not enough. There's a lot ahead of that team. They have a long way to go. But tonight, there was a real sense of optimism.
Yeah, there really was. And I think it had as much to do with how they played and who they beat and where they were. First time winning a game inside this building, which was rocking. I mean, this stadium was
it's unbelievable.
Juiced up. They were ready to go. And by the end, this same stadium was deadly quiet. I mean, it was so quiet by the end. So all those things kind of culminated in a real, I think, sense of accomplishment for this team that it hadn't felt. This franchise has not felt in a long time. And what makes you hungry for more is getting that first little taste of it. And it's like Aaron Jones said, you know, the goal isn't this. The goal is to play in Miami and win in Miami. And that's the goal. And what you saw tonight, it certainly that team that you saw tonight is capable of doing that.
Well, they get one more regular season game to get themselves ready and in the mindset for the playoffs on the road in Detroit next week. Guys, that's going to do it for us here tonight in Minneapolis. Make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for all of your Packers news. Follow us on social media to get lots of updates. I mean, guys, this is going to be a pretty big run the next couple of weeks, so you're going to want to make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for everything. We're your go-to source, obviously. Also, make sure you come back later this week. We'll do lots of live streams, chat with you guys, take your questions. as we wrap up this season. I cannot believe we're at the end. I'm sad. I'm still
Maybe they're at the end. Maybe there's a long way to go.
It could be. We could be doing this. Who knows? But I cannot believe it's the end of the regular season. I really feel like we were roasting on the sidelines at training camp just a couple weeks ago.
This is my 6th season. It goes faster every year. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just a spinning wheel that keeps going faster and faster.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. You could be doing anything. You could be asleep right now, but you're not. You're with us, and we really do appreciate it.